They called it the Ship of Dreams, a floating masterpiece of elegance, engineering, and ego. But 4 days into its maiden voyage, Titanic transformed into something else entirely, a watery grave for more than 1,500 souls. Most people know the version Hollywood showed us: romance, tragedy, music as the ship went down, but that was only part of the truth. The real story is far more disturbing, far more human, and far more forgotten. If you're someone who believes history deserves to be told honestly, with all its shadows and secrets, then you're in the right place. If this video speaks to you, please make sure to like it, subscribe to our channel Echoes of Time, and don't forget to tap the bell icon so you never miss the stories that history tried to bury. Let's begin. April 10th, 1912. The Titanic stood at port, gleaming under the English sun like a monument to mankind's ambition. She was a floating city, a promise of power, elegance, and progress. They called her unsinkable, a miracle of modern engineering. And yet, just 4 nights later, she would vanish beneath the Atlantic, taking more than 1,500 lives with her, and countless secrets the world still hasn't heard. The movie gave us a love story, but the real Titanic, it was something far darker, something messier, more human, and far more haunting. What if I told you the Titanic didn't sink because of an iceberg alone? What if I told you it wasn't just fate, but a chain of human failures, hidden motives, and ignored warnings that sealed her doom? Let me take you back to that week. Not the one you've seen on screen, but the one history tried to tidy up. 3 days before the iceberg, wireless operators aboard Titanic began receiving warnings. Ice fields ahead, massive bergs drifting in shipping lanes. But those messages weren't sent to the captain. The Marconi operators were busy, not with navigation, but with passenger telegrams. First-class guests had parties to plan, affairs to conceal, egos to feed. And the officers? They continued at full speed, because slowing down would mean arriving late, and arriving late would mean embarrassment for the White Star Line. Pride was more important than caution, but that wasn't the only silence aboard the ship. In the lower decks, far beneath the polished brass and crystal chandeliers, were passengers whose names history rarely mentions. Entire families packed into cramped cabins. Dreamers, laborers, widows with children. They didn't dine with silver forks. They didn't dance under golden domes. And when the iceberg hit, they didn't hear the warning in time. Gates separated them from the upper decks. Not locked officially, but closed long enough to delay their escape. By the time they reached the lifeboats, most were already gone. No violins, no speeches, just cold steel and colder water. One story rarely told is that of the Odell family. Steerage passengers from Yorkshire. A mother, a father, and 3 small children. As panic spread through the lower decks, the father forced open a stairwell gate with his bare hands. He managed to lift his wife and 2 children into a crowded lifeboat. But there wasn't room for him. His body was never found. And then there was Michel Navratil, a father traveling under a false name with his 2 sons, fleeing a bitter custody battle. He handed his boys to a stranger in the final moments, whispering, "Tell their mother I love them." The children survived. He didn't. There were also tales of defiance, like that of stewardess Violet Jessop. Not only did she survive the Titanic, but she also lived through disasters on the Olympic and the Britannic. She described hearing the ship's final groan, like an animal screaming in pain, her account was later buried under more marketable survivor stories. Among the crew, fireman Charles Hendrickson recalled discovering a coal bunker fire burning inside the ship even before it set sail. Some historians now believe the heat from that fire weakened the very bulkhead that would later collapse under iceberg pressure. Was it known? Was it ignored? We may never know, and then there's the mystery that won't die. Some believe the Titanic wasn't even the ship that sailed. A conspiracy whispered through generations claims she was swapped with her damaged sister ship, Olympic. An insurance fraud gone wrong. The layouts were identical, the damage costly, and J.P. Morgan, the powerful banker who funded it all, cancelled his trip at the last minute. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you start connecting the dots, the story the world believes begins to tremble. At 11:40 p.m. on April 14th, the iceberg scraped Titanic's starboard side. The damage didn't seem fatal at first. There was no dramatic tear, no hole large enough to explain her sinking. But below, the compartments flooded fast, not because the iceberg punched through steel, but because design flaws, cost cuts, and misplaced confidence turned a small wound into a death sentence. The ship wasn't supposed to break in two, but it did. At 2:20 a.m., the pride of a generation was gone. And yet, even then, the story was far from over. The SS Californian sat just a few miles away, close enough to see Titanic's distress rockets, but her wireless operator was asleep. Her captain refused to act. Survivors would later testify they could see her lights, they could almost hear her engines, but no help came. Only silence, only stars. No one was ever held accountable. In the days that followed, newspapers clung to the tales of bravery. The band that played as the ship sank, the captain who went down with his vessel, the rich who gave up their lifeboats. All true, but convenient, clean, palatable. They didn't mention the immigrant mothers clutching babies in freezing corridors, the men shot at for trying to climb aboard half-empty boats, the officers who lied to protect reputations, because history, like the ocean, buries what it cannot face. Titanic wasn't just a disaster, it was a mirror held up to the face of a proud, divided and careless world. A world where the rich had names and the poor had numbers. A world where speed mattered more than safety. A world that didn't believe it could fail until it did. And maybe that's why her story still haunts us. Not because of the iceberg, but because deep down, we know it could happen again. And this time, we might not even see it coming.